I record this podcast on Gadigal country. I'd like to pay my respect to the traditional custodians.
And I'm recording on Wurundjeri country, part of the Kulin Nation. Let's go.
I know you're gonna dig this.
It's like I've been given like an extra sprinkle of something.
You got layers.
Yeah, I got layers.
I was just thinking, I'm like, we're just such beautiful storytellers.
You're making a lot of sense today, girl. No, I'm done.
Let's jump into it, honest to God.
Well, we've had her on First Things First before, but welcome back the incredible Mel, who is the co-author of Brooke and Mel's new book, Mel Saward.
So I've heard there's a little ex-bachelor,
Ex-rugby league player,
hot Aussie larrikin,
hunk of a man, hummingbird, honey badger.
wrong guy, is in your DMs, Mel. Would you like to explain to us, please?
You're not the only ex-bachelor person in my DMs.
It's not even me, guys.
Ooh. Oh, we need the details because this is wild. What's been happening?
He's in my DMs because I spent some time on TikTok, maybe giving him a bit of a growl like the aunties might have for, not being...
Possibly calling him out?
Yeah, giving him a bit of a call out, maybe going a little bit viral for calling him out.
Literally.
Okay, let's play the video that we're talking about.
As we all know, there's this Booktok boy, and he is a nice guy. Absolutely nobody is denying that. But he has already got a platform. He is an ex-rugby league player, an ex-bachelor, and he had a lot of followers on Instagram before he arrived on Booktok. And if you've been on TikTok for a minute, you will know that he joined in April, and yesterday it was announced that the Booktok boy had signed a multi-book deal with the Tria Publishing, which is an imprint of Simon & Schuster. There is a queer woman of colour called Zekwe. She recently also signed a multi-book deal with the Tria Publishing, and guess what? She has not had the same red carpet treatment that Luke has had. Aside from a couple of announcements, we've heard crickets about this one. There's been no hype, no marketing push, no big PR. And why? Why is that so? Because the publishing industry does not treat everyone equally.
For context, guys, so this hot Booktok guy throws out this video, gets 100 and something thousand likes, and a lot of people are talking about it, but Mel's called him out.
I have, yeah. I know that there were a lot of people that were kind of upset when he first went mega viral, I suppose, in terms of Australian Booktok, which seems a really weird thing to be talking about, going viral. But
I can understand why he went viral, though. Sexy man talking about literature. I mean, that's a massive turn on. I'd be sharing it if I
It's
saw
the
it.
bare fucking minimum!
They say, what's the sexiest thing in a man's hand? Some say a vacuum. I say a book.
he didn't even have the book in his hand, Maddie. He
Oh,
was in
okay.
a tractor.
Reading one fucking book in his life and he gets 100 and... No, I've literally got...
Girl, it sounds like me with my 75 hard challenge. Every time I read those 10 pages of the book, I think I'm better than everyone. I'm like, I am the smartest man in the world.
my pants. Honest
Girl,
to
when
God.
I close that book, I'm like, wow, I am so intelligent. And I continue
The
my day.
comments on this Booktok guy seriously has been like girls literally throwing and like using it as a like to date him pretty much, right? Like putting their dating profile like, hi, I'm blah blah blah. This is where you can find me. Or like some girls like, wow, I'm all of a sudden interested in books.
Wow, how do you like your eggs cooked?
This is frustrating as fuck. And it's funny, but it's frustrating because it's like one guy reads one book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And literally girls are throwing themselves at you. It's like,
When
come
somebody
on.
asks you to, what the patriarchy is, you should just send them this video.
Literally! This is what it is.
So, Mel, tell us about the DMs. So you
Yeah.
obviously called this Booktok viral video.
Go you, girlfriend. Like,
out.
you're not there for your own, dating intentions, you're like, fuck, this is a great opportunity to message him.
Yeah. Well, actually, he messaged me.
Oh shit. He slid into her DMs.
He slid into my DMs because I was on someone else's video saying, oh, there's no way this man will want to talk about books with me, because she'd made a video as well saying similar sorts of things, that the comments were gross, and then women were also coming for each other because, of course, when there's a man involved,
it's the Bachelor all over again. Fucking hell. Seriously.
Wow. Yeah. Really great use of words there, coming for each other.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, we're going back to the not so PG days.
Literally.
No, but I want to know what made you, like, what was the first message you sent him, and what has that conversation entailed?
Well, he just messaged me and said he'd like to talk about books with me, and I went back to him and I said, look, I'm not actually mad at you for getting followers. It's more the fact that there are so many people on Booktok, and like, to talk myself up, for example, I, being an Aboriginal person on the internet in any form, is not a picnic.
Sorry,
right?
I was literally writing down that comment you said about, I want to talk books with you. I was like, great pickup line.
Awesome
great
pickup line.
line.
I'll put it in my Hinge profile.
Keep going.
Yeah, so I said I wasn't really mad at him. It was more about the people that saw him, pretty man, Ocker accent, in a tractor, talking about books, and he got all of those followers and he's getting attention, and that means he has influence on Booktok. And we know, like, to get nerdy with you, we know studies show that Booktok and social media, but Booktok in particular, is the biggest book-selling influence in the world at the moment.
Wow.
So if you can get picked up on Booktok and go viral, then your book is going to sell out. You will get book deals. You will get all of the sorts of things that authors really want. Unfortunately for someone like me, and like, it does sound a bit like sour grapes, but I get furious when people have a platform and then all the books that they are talking about are the popular ones, the ones that already have shelf space in Dymocks, the ones that already have thousands upon thousands of readers, that have worldwide deals, which are oftentimes problematic storylines or from problematic authors, whereas there's every single Indigenous author out there is scrabbling around to tell our stories and get them out there. Yeah. And we don't get that much attention. Like, it takes a lot of energy to get one booktoker to hold your book up on Booktok and say, this was a good book, go and buy it.
Yeah.
Wow.
In Australia, our market is so small. So it was more that he had gotten the influence that I have sort of craved, because I know what I want to do with that influence, which is to
educate
and sell our stories. And, you know, the trickle down effect of that is that then kids like the kids that Brooke works with at school will be able to see more Indigenous authors, more Indigenous stories, and be able to dream of maybe telling those stories in the future. And it will be easy for them, because I see it as my responsibility to make way for the next lot of people coming up. So I was furious at the followers, but I also said to him in the DMs when he said, I'd love to talk about books with you, and I was like, great, here is your reading list. Wow. And I actually am quite good at finding recommendations. If someone says, I like
you
fantasy,
are amazing.
then finding something else for someone to pick up. So my biggest area of expertise and interest is romance. Yeah. But I can tell this guy that he should pick up a fantasy book by, say, Lisa Fuller or Lystra Rose or someone like that. So he said, to his credit, he has said he will pick them up. And then I went on and did a big recommendation video and tagged him in it, and we'll see what happens. But I think that it's just that so many people are throwing around these likes and follows, and they're worth nothing to someone who maybe already has a platform, who's maybe, you know, like him, has developed his platform by being on The Bachelor, by being a rugby player, by all of those sorts of things tangentially. And then there's the rest of us who it is our actual job to be on these social platforms, scrambling around for my, huge 3,000 followers. It's just, it gets really frustrating.
Well, let's take this notion and put him to the side. Enough talking about hunk, Booktok man. Let's talk about you, Mel. I want to know, where are you from? Who's your mob? Let our listeners give a little bit of insight into your journey as a writer.
Yeah, sure. So my name's Mel Saward and I'm a Bigambul and Wakka Wakka woman. So my people are from around Gundawindi Way, which is on the Queensland-New South Wales border. And Wakka Wakka people, it's a big area up in Queensland, but my grandmother specifically was from Gayndah, which is a little town sort of northwest of Maryborough, and so up in North Queensland. So, that's where my people are from. But I live in just outside of Brisbane in a little city called Ipswich, which Brooke has been to visit now.
I love Ipswich.
What do you think of Ipswich, Brooke?
I actually really liked it. I was like, I don't know, it just kind of reminded me a little bit like Perth in a sense. Yeah. Like quite small and like, I don't know. I just had that
a lot
kind
of mob around
laid
that
back,
area.
laid back vibe.
Yeah.
A lot of mob there. Yeah, sure.
Yeah, a lot of mob. It's a really great place to be. If you come to Brisbane, we're just 30 minutes west, and it's a nice place to visit. So I live in Ipswich, but my day job is as an academic at the University of Queensland. So I teach about the writing and publishing industry. And that's where my background is. I used to be a book editor. I used to work at actually Brooke and my publisher.
Yeah, she used to work at HarperCollins, who obviously, if you know, I've signed with them with the books that we've created and my memoir. But they're great. I mean, I don't know what it was like to work for them, but I love getting paid by them.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, so I worked there for a little while, but then I went into academia and book publishing.
Yeah. We're writing a book.
We've written a book.
Sorry.
We are writing another one.
We've gone back in time, girl. You've done it. It's published. It's out. I promise.
I'm having deja vu a little bit because we've been in studio before.
We have.
And it was in Perth, which was so crazy because we went for the Barbie premiere. So I feel like I obviously have spent so much time with you and getting to know you, and I have this relationship with you. But for the listeners, like, this has been such a journey for you of writing. You've published 3 books. So you've got Burn, which was your first. Yes. And it's about a young Indigenous boy who lights fires, which you would love to do what?
Well, I would love to see it made into a TV series, actually. Wow. I think that's my next
Who would you
goal.
Cast? Can I ask, who would you cast to be the main character?
It's so hard because you think about how long it takes. Like, both of you know how long it takes to get a film up and running. All the kids that you would pick, because like Andrew is 16, 17 at the end. So all of the people that you would pick for it are going to be in their like 30s. Probably wouldn't matter, would it, The way you
I think Thomas Weatherall would be fabulous, don't you reckon, Maddie?
Oh, yeah, he's deadly.
You should read this book. It's amazing. And then you wrote a romance novel.
I did, yes.
Give us a little bit of insight into that romance novel.
So it's called Love Unleashed, and it's about a Bigambul girl called Bryn who grows up fairly similarly to me on the north side of Brisbane and wants to go to New York to work for a big literary magazine or the publishing industry. And so when she finishes uni, she gets on a plane and heads off to New York and tries to get this job. But everything sort of falls apart for her and she ends up working in a doggy daycare. So it's kind of cute and funny, but it's more a romantic comedy that's, things don't magically work out, which I think was a little bit more realistic when you're a black fella reading a book where someone might go off to a big city where you don't sort of magically have
It's
money.
like this fantasy world that there's always sort of a happy ending kind of vibe.
It does have a happy ending, absolutely, but it doesn't sort of work out the way that you would expect it to. In a rom-com, she should have got the job and had the kind of Carrie Bradshaw life, but she doesn't really get that, but she gets good stuff. It does work out in the end.
What inspired you to have that reality aspect to it? Is it so that mob felt like the story they were reading maybe they could connect more deeply to?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a big... So the funny thing about this book was that it was my PhD, which people don't actually realise that you can write a book, but it was 80% of this big academic work that took me 4 years to do, and the book was the main part of it. And so what I was trying to do, like in academic worlds, you're trying to answer a question. And my question was a lot around, is the publishing industry ready for a book with an Aboriginal heroine that doesn't follow all those typical things, but still has the happily ever after, which is critical for a romance book.
Yeah.
And so Bryn is Aboriginal, she's queer, she's fat, she comes from a family that is made up a little bit differently. Her mum had passed away. She lives with her stepdad and her half-brother, but of course we don't say things like half-brother, right? It's just her little brother. She's got one of her best friends is her sister cousin, and so she has this really strong connection back home. So she's not running away from anything, she's running towards things, but also
I love that vision.
Yeah, I love that. And her mum, and it was her mum's dream for her to go to New York and do those things, so she's kind of fulfilling her mum's wishes as well to go over there. But yeah, and then she discovers things about herself while she's there. And I think oftentimes, and I think when you're reading a book where someone goes overseas, their dreams come true and they want to stay overseas and everything magically works out. And I think for Mob, that's a bit more complicated, right? Like it is possible to live overseas and enjoy living overseas.
Just seems
but
very far.
Yeah, it's far, and we are so deeply connected. Like I often think about you, Brooke, you know, when you're not having a good time, going home is really important for you, and being on country, and that is recharging and things like that. So it was stuff like that that I thought about. Her, you know, feeling that string that connects you home.
It's also pulled. Like, you know, New York is like, you know, something that we see quite often on our TVs, and it kind of does feel a bit of a fantasy and not real.
Yeah.
So when you think of New York, you're like, oh, like I could never. And I think that's the narrative, or like the story a lot of mob actually tell themselves a lot if they don't feel like it's achievable. And I think they constantly will be like, oh no, I could never. I could never do that. I could never go there. And I think it's when you start believing in yourself and your self-worth is so high, you start believing that anything is possible, and just getting on a plane is possible. Because I kept telling myself about New York. Maddie knows this. Yeah. I was like, I'm going to do it. And then I just fucking did it. Yeah. And I was like, this is the best thing I ever did. Yeah. I came back. It's so crazy. I came back to myself more so in New York than I actually ever have in some ways on country. I know that sounds really weird. But when I'm on country, it's like that rest. But when I'm in another country by myself, it's liberation. It's like doing something that's you don't think is possible, and then you're doing it. And it's crazy. Yeah. So I really connect with Bryn's story, because it's like she's just doing the thing. Yeah. She's just doing the thing, and I think we need to tell our young people, just do the thing, right? Yeah. And I know that sounds so simple, but like it's just so needed. So like our book, A Good Kind of Trouble, a lot of people think, oh wow, what is it? Like they're intrigued, which is great. It also kind of sucks that sometimes you have to put a cover that's so clickbaity to get people enticed to do it, right?
Yeah.
How did you come up with that title?
Well, we just wrote the story, and then we kind of well, Stella's bad news in some sense. So
and it is a chapter title as well, which I completely forgot about when we were having the conversation about what it was going to be called.
Well, like I don't know. I was like, Jamie.
Yeah. Well, we had Jamie and Stella, but it said Jamie and Stella book 1 all the time, the whole time we were writing it.
So it's kind of crazy, because like now we're kind of coming up with the next one. And it's like, do we stay on the line of like a good kind of something else, or do we completely change it? But I like consistency, so I'm like, we need to come up with something else. But
what about a bad kind of good?
It's a different point of view.
Ooh, a bad kind of good. Did Maddie just do it?
Did you just give our what is it? A bad kind of good?
Bad kind of good. People are like, wait, this is confusing, but I like it.
Yeah, they're like, what? Like
a bad kind of good.
It's something for our young people.
Yeah.
It's as much as it is for Mel and I to love and to care and to nurture, it's the same time, it's just for young people to read and see themselves and to feel seen, right?
Yeah.
And I think we're going to see that at my work, which is MITS, which is with the young Indigenous kids.
How beautiful.
That travel from home, their community, to Melbourne to get an education. Now, our second book is kind of the MITS experience, but it's from Stella's point of view, which is the good kind of trouble who comes to town and flips Jamie's world. So it's crazy because, like, we're making this story, but it's so interwoven and so connected with real experiences. Yeah. It's crazy to think, like, these young kids will read this and then just understand that this could be a thing that they can actually do. Which is crazy.
Your young girls at MITS, do they read? Have you seen a culture of reading at the school?
Yeah, every Tuesday morning we do reading hour. So from like 8:30 to 9 or like 8:15 to 9, we read with the kids. And this is to encourage obviously their literature and numeracy as well. But it's just to like have that first 30 minutes of school where they get to kind of have their own time, just reading books, or they read with one of the teachers. But the material that they're reading is, like a Diary of a Wimpy Kid, Captain Underpants. They're quite comical. So they're they're actual like comics, not real reading. And that's the kind of thing that, because while it might be because they're behind in their like literacy, but it's not to say that they can't learn so quickly. Like, I've seen these kids evolve very, very quickly with just the muscle memory of reading every single day.
Yeah. I do a lot of school visits. So my first book, Burn, because it's got a young person in it, I actually get to go all over the country and talk to kids at schools. And my favourite school is in Queensland. It's also in Ipswich, which is also an Indigenous school. It's an Indigenous independent school.
What's the school called?
It is called Himbayumba. Yeah, it's a really nice school. I enjoy going to visit there. I've been a couple of times now, and just going in the classroom and seeing the kids that this book and the book that Brooke and I wrote, A Good Kind of Trouble, is for, means so much. And Burn is probably a little bit higher than the literacy level of some of the ones that I go in and see, but they love seeing themselves on the page. They love seeing that they can relate to things, and they give it a red hot go. And then I still get these beautiful emails from their teacher where they've done an assignment to write a character that is out of Burn. So, and many of them choose Andrew, the main character, to extend his story out, and their understanding of where this kid comes from is so much more nuanced and matured than a lot of the adult readers, just because it is based in their experience. And the Aboriginal experience is not the same.
No,
absolutely.
Yeah, it's different.
I wanted to ask you, Mel, you've been working with Brooke now for a little while. What does that relationship look like? Has it evolved over time? Is it like a group project at uni where it's like, no, what I mean is, like, give insight into your dynamic as writers and collaborating, because not every author has the opportunity to collaborate. And I think it's really powerful that two First Nations women are working together and putting out these books. So what does that look like, and how has that been for you both?
Well, I'm so glad that in the start when I was signing, I guess, with Harper, that I wanted to collaborate. Like, I didn't want to just do something solely. One, because I'm not obviously the most experienced writer. Like, I wrote my memoir, but mostly of it was voice recordings and getting that story down, and that's quite factual. But in terms of narrative writing, like, I'm my strength is just telling and orally. So I obviously knew my strengths, and I wanted to collaborate with someone who had a similar vision, really, pretty much. And like, it was kind of like, we laugh about it now because obviously we do talks and together about the books, but we say, like, it was kind of like a book Tinder. Like, we kind of got, we swiped a few times and then we were like, boom, compatible.
If only Tinder was so successful.
Oh,
right?
no. Look at us go. 2 years, 3 years. Well, we're actually so much longer now.
Yeah.
So we've known each other since 2022.
Yeah.
I've come across your content in 2022 when your name was sort of put. And we've that first meeting like together was
Yeah.
actually probably one of my favorite memories of ours.
Yeah.
Was we sat in my back terrace and we just talked for hours.
Yeah. It was supposed to just be a coffee. We'd texted a bit, but we hadn't met before.
Yeah.
So it was supposed to just be a coffee. I was in Melbourne for a couple of days, had some free time, headed over to Brooke's, thought just have a coffee and work out what the plan was. And I think Brooke was dropping me back at my hotel at like 6 p.m.
It was so late.
I've been there.
That's wonderful.
That's like
Hit
a
it straight
5-hour
off.
date, you
Yeah,
know? Like,
yeah,
what
yeah.
do they say? Yeah.
Yeah.
A date that didn't end.
Wow.
And I think our friendship has just evolved from, you know, I think that instant sort of connection. And I think it's really hard to make friendships like that.
It can be, yeah.
I think even if, regardless if we weren't working together, I think we still would have been such great friends.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And I think like over time, there's not been a point in our work relationship or even our friendship that we've not supported one another, I think. I think that's the best thing about a collaborative process. We both also say, like, if anyone gets the opportunity to collaborate, it's the best thing.
It's so much fun. And you're right, Maddie, so many writers don't get the chance to do that, but how nice it is not only to imagine that story together, but also to go out and talk about it together. And we've been waiting for it for a while. Like we did when we were in Perth for the Barbie premiere a few years ago. We did talk about it. This actually being on this podcast was probably our first public talking about it together.
Yeah.
And full circle.
Yeah, absolutely. And so we have talked about it to people separately, but actually just getting Book to go on writers' festivals together and sharing the stage with someone like both of us have done a lot of these festivals with our books beforehand, and they're so scary
and isolating.
You walk into these rooms sometimes, as you know, writers, we have our heroes in those rooms, and you walk into the author green room and think someone really famous is there, and I kind of lose my mind a little bit and think, am I allowed to be here? It's weird that I'm here. But walking into those spaces, having someone that is a close friend with you, it just automatically makes you more relaxed, because as someone like
Beautiful.
if I'm having a bit of a meltdown, then Brooke's there for me, and it's lovely.
Likewise. And
I love that.
I think we're both quite experienced in our industries in, you know, like, I guess I have never done book festivals and Mel's all over it, and I like rely on her in those cases to explain, you know, who's who, and like, so I understand it for our, you know, for our book, and like vice versa about who's who. But Mel's all over it in terms of influencer world. Like, must admit, she knows stuff before I actually do, and I'm like, how the hell? I'm like, girl, she's updating me on stuff, and I'm like, oh fuck, I have no idea what is going on. we both look at each other like, the JoJo Siwa drama? What? And it's just so nice because, like, I don't know, it's a work relationship turned friendship turned into family. I think like that's the best way to describe it. And I think we're hoping that we continue the book writing. We would love, obviously, our book, A Good Kind of Trouble, to be a sequel, something that stays around for a little while, and we can kind of keep that legacy of writing together until we're old and grey, and then we're like, oh, okay, we can't write about young people anymore.
Well, I want to ask you both, what is it that you want, you know, both blackfellas but also non-Indigenous mob to take away from this book once they read it? And is it specifically for young people, or any ages can tackle this book?
Any age can read it.
Anyone.
I think anyone would love it.
We've both had lots of people come up to us, adults come up to us and say, this is the book that I wish I'd had when I was a kid.
Wow, that's empowering.
Yeah, it really, really is. And it's because it's not, you're right, it is a book for mob, and that is our probably, you know, like if your heart's on mob, that's who our first audience is all the time. But it's also a book about queer young people, and queer young people who are just out at school. Like it's not a coming out story. It is, Jamie is the only out kid at their country school. And so it's that story, you know, like where maybe she is a little bit brave to be the only one out at
Hugely
school,
brave.
but also she is showing that it is okay to be that way, and I guess that's
no one sees her differently.
No one sees her differently. She's still a deadly footy player. She's still really popular and all of those things. It's just this thing about her, and I think that's kind of how we all want to be, right? Like that. It's
I love that.
just part of our identity, not our whole identity.
100%. Yeah. I definitely, connect with that on so many levels. But I also think like the book kind of shows other things that we should normalize, which is like family dynamics. Like Maddie and I know this quite well, is that our family aren't always blood, and they're not always the most either reliable, or they might not show as like parental figures in our life, but we love them dearly. There's still so much love there. Or our dynamic is that we stayed with aunties and uncles, and that's what sort of Jamie does, is that she stays with her uncle and auntie, and she has little ones, which is her sister's children, and or her cousin's children, Treasure. And it's like, that's the dynamic we grew up in. It's not that real conventional nuclear family, which I think is more realistic. I know we love books to, escapism and fantasy, but I think sometimes it's nice showing the real parts and the real actual dynamics and the truth of that, because I think people like to want to feel seen, but also want to feel like what they're experiencing is also, like, in quotation, normal.
Yeah. And I think we're also, as blackfellas as well, and this is also for the wider audience as well, and another reason why I wrote romance too, is that so many of our books and stories and the things that the people in power, so whether that's publishers or movie makers or whoever else, are seeking about our stories, oftentimes they want the hard one, right? So they want to hear about the tragedy of the stolen generation. They want to hear those things. And I'm not saying these things are not important and are not legacies that we pass down, and it's not trauma that we all carry in our blood.
They are sacred.
They are very sacred, and these are important stories, and they do change people's hearts and minds when they read these things. But also, can't we just have a silly book? Like, can't we
have a fluffy book?
Silly romance novel? Can't we just have a book where everything works out? Can't we just see a snapshot of real life that's not necessarily our
Mel does that beautifully.
Drama and trauma.
Anita Heiss does that beautifully.
Yeah, exactly.
Lara Williams
agree.
has written a play as well that has done that romantic comedy.
Yes, I've heard about that. I really want to see it.
I feel like we were having similar conversation, which is so good, about, like, let us dance and dress in the clothes that we want to dress in. It doesn't always have to come from this,
deficit lens.
Yes. And I love, we love, I'm learning to love the fluffy, and I think Mel does a great job with, like, helping me with that.
Beautiful.
And I think, we've been on this journey together. Oh my God, I used the word journey again. Oh my God.
What's wrong with the word journey?
It comes from the Bachelor's School of Public Speaking.
I don't think I'll ever get rid of that word, and I'm so over it. But anyways.
Well, I want to know, look, speaking of journey, what's on the horizon for you, Mel? What's next?
Well, Brooke and I have the sequel coming out next year, so we're sort of deep in the editing trenches.
It's nearly there.
It's nearly
really
there.
exciting.
Is there a character called Maddie?
We could
You're
probably
like,
incorporate
it's a boring name. Don't do it.
We could probably put one in.
We could probably change it, I guess.
Nah, do not.
He can be
please.
the horrible boarding coordinator.
Yeah, I could.
He can be this big sergeant. Nah, she's nice.
And I am working on another romantic comedy right now as well.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you have a name for it, or you not yet?
It is called The Next Chapter at the moment.
Okay, that's exciting.
Yeah.
I love
the
that.
next chapter of life.
You know what? I want to wish you all the best for the next chapter.
Would you ever publish it, Maddie?
I love a segue.
Yeah.
I would. I'm actually thinking, I've pitched a few ideas to the team, and there's one idea that I really want to do, and it's a kid's book around choice. And understanding that every choice that we make leads to the places that we end up. So it's about, making sure that young kids really at the beginning of their life understand that they can be really in control of their future and, create a path that they want for their life instead of what they've been given. So it's all around choice. And, this Career Kids Choice is currently the title, but I think, there's much more.
We need that.
Yeah, we definitely
Absolutely
need that. It
because
sounds so
there's
good.
also consequences to choices. And one of the things in this book is not right or wrong. There's no right or wrong, but if you make a choice that might affect somebody else, for instance, if you don't share something, or if you're being a selfish person, or if you make a decision that could have negative effect on someone, you need to understand that consequence, So I think it's also about understanding every choice that we make in our lives has a consequence. And what are we willing to, do with our own lives to make sure that those consequences aren't always negative. But
I love that.
yeah, so that's my little book that's sort of in the very early pitching process.
What age group do you think?
Young, so I'm thinking 6 to 10.
Yeah,
That's beautiful.
like a picture book or
Yeah, and there's also it's a picture book, but there's also sort of what are they called, pop-ups, and you don't know the consequence until you make the decision.
Oh my god, this is so cool.
I love that.
It's also
You
a picture
slide-
adventure, so it's like you might start with a certain choice that you make, and then you follow that choice throughout the book, and you get to a different. If you choose something different at the beginning, you can get something different at the end.
Wow.
So
I love that. Yep.
there's many ways you can read this book to a child. So it's not a one and done kind of book. There's multiple options that you could really go on as a journey, which I love. So that's my little first book. I think that will hopefully be greenlit. And,
Hopefully there's some
in the
publishers
works.
listening.
Yeah, I was
and
about
they'll
to
be
say
like,
like HarperCollins.
we want it.
Don't take my idea, people listening. No, they won't,
I feel
but,
like you'll
yeah.
do it. I feel
Yeah.
like you'll do it.
Yeah.
Like you never
Absolutely.
say things that you don't do. So
Yeah. Well, I just want to say thank you so much for taking the time to come in, Mel. Like I know you're, you flew in and you're here for the book launch, so I hope
Yes.
that all goes well. And
Thank you.
if our, lovely listeners want to support both of you, how can they find the book?
The book is in all good bookstores at the moment. We particularly want to shout out if you're in, anywhere, Amplify bookstore. They're in North Melbourne, but they started as an online bookstore and they only cover writers of colour. So it's a really
Powerful.
small specialist bookshop. But yeah, if you want to support them, an independent bookstore, but you can also buy it anywhere you like.
yeah, it should be in the young adult YA or children's books
Yes.
section.
Deadly.
But yeah, you can also find Mel's other books, which is Love Unleashed and Burn. And then hopefully the next chapter coming soon.
Hopefully.
Ooh, I love that.
Or
And
you
put
can
all
buy
of
Big
this-
Love.
Yes. We'll put all of these in the show notes so that our lovely listeners can click through quite easily. But thank you so much, Mel. That's all we have time for today on First Things First. If you love what you hear, leave us a rating and a little review.
And if you want us to cover anything on the next pod, reach out via our socials. You can find Mel at,
Little Red Rights.
and my handle's at Brooke.Blen, and Maddie's handle's at It's Maddie Mills.
Bye, Mom.